Welcome to all of our audience and guests today. Thanks very much for joining us, folks. I'm really pleased to be joined by two industry experts. I'm sure you will know them, but if you don't, we'll introduce them in a moment. So today I'm really pleased to be joined by Saleem Khaja, who's the COO and co-founder at leading talent platform WorkLlama. Saleem, so good to see you and welcome to today's show. Really appreciate it. I'm also pleased to be joined by leading industry expert and researcher, Christopher Dwyer, who's the Senior Vice President of Research at Ardent Partners and also the Managing Director of the Future of Work Exchange. So Chris, a warm welcome to you. Always enjoy our conversations with both you gentlemen. And I think our audience are really going to be enlightened and I hope excited by this burgeoning topic. So Chris, if it's okay, for the benefit of our audience, for those of our audience that don't know you, can you just explain what your role is with Ardent Partners and what you folks do? Thank you.
Yeah, I'd love to. Yeah, so Ardent Partners is a research firm located in Boston, Massachusetts, over here in the States. Historically focused on supply management and procurement, but obviously my focus is on HR, talent acquisition, contingent extended workforce management, and this wonderful phrase, the future of work. And so about 6-7 months ago, we launched something called the Future of Work Exchange, which is really going to be sort of the umbrella of content research, multimedia for all of our research related to talent and work. And so right after this webinar, go to futureofworkexchange.com. I promise you won't be disappointed.
Thanks, Chris. And I can only agree. It's an excellent resource for practitioners in our space. So thank you for that, Chris, and thanks again for joining us. Saleem, I know you well, of course. We've got to know each other over the last 2 years, and it's been very enjoyable to say the least. But so, Saleem, again, for the benefit of our audience, can you explain what problems and challenges that the WorkLlama platform solves for? Thanks, Saleem.
Yep. Thanks, Connor. It's been great knowing you as well. So WorkLlama is a talent community platform or a talent-centric platform. Just before I get into what the platform does, we are a company headquartered in Atlanta. We got in the game about 3-4 years ago, where we started focusing on talent. So we are a platform that, when we came out, looked at the ecosystem and realized that nobody kind of really focused on talent itself, right? Every piece of technology that existed at that time was so inward focused in terms of process optimization and that aspect, and talent happened to be the ignored piece of the puzzle. So what we decided at that point in time is to take a talent-centric approach and truly apply concepts to treat talent like customers, right? We looked at how organizations have boiled it down to a science as it relates to attracting customers, engaging, nurturing customers, and making them brand ambassadors, and driving that repeat purchase and bringing more people into the ecosystem. And we said, why not apply the same concepts to talent? So that's one of the core tenets of the platform, treating talent like customers, so they become your brand ambassadors, continue to be in your ecosystem, and try to help all the workforce related challenges that we talk about, right? In the end, everyone is trying to solve for 3 things, right? Acquire quality talent in a timely manner at optimal cost. And it's very easy the moment you start looking at talent like customers. So that's essentially what we do. We are a holistic platform. I can go on and on what we do, Connor. I'm going to pause here because that's how people are here. So thanks for the opportunity.
Not at all, Saleem, and we got the gist of it. So thank you. And Saleem, you raised a point that we're going to address later in the webinar around optimal cost, and maybe that's not a big a focus as it was when direct sourcing first came about. But I'm really looking forward to exploring that later in the show. So folks, we're here to speak today around direct sourcing 2.0. I first had the pleasure of hearing this phrase actually from Chris, who's joined us today as one of our speakers. And Chris, I'm going to attribute this phrase to you. Okay, I don't know if
Oh,
you've
thank you.
if you haven't, maybe it's a good idea. But
Yeah,
Chris,
maybe we should.
yeah, exactly. But Chris, what is direct sourcing 2.0? What are the key critical differences from direct sourcing?
No, that's a great question, Connor. And I've been getting asked this question more so than any other over the past maybe 4 or 5 months. I think that the best way to think of direct sourcing 2.0 is it's the natural evolution of direct sourcing that really aligns and adapts to where we are from a labor market or a talent market perspective, right? And it's funny, and I'll say like a lot of I wouldn't say detractors, but a lot of folks will say, well, Chris, direct sourcing itself, it hasn't been around for decades, right? How can we already be on a 2.0, right? How do we get there so fast? And I think direct sourcing has been such a big part of our industry, those couple of years before the pandemic and especially during the pandemic, that itself, like other talent-based strategies, had to evolve and adapt to the changing times. And so to me, direct sourcing 2.0, more focus on talent, more focus on the talent experience, more focus on the hiring manager experience as well. I feel that that's an overlooked concept. More focus on engagement, and the extended workforce over the past few years has brought companies flexibility and scalability, right? And so my thought was direct sourcing really has to follow the same path. And direct sourcing 1.0, and there's nothing wrong with a company that has just core DS 1.0 in place right now. The benefits of direct sourcing itself are incredible, right? I mean, like Saleem said, right? Optimal talent at the optimal price at the right time. You're still going to get all that from more traditional direct sourcing. But and Connor, I'm going to attribute this to you because you put it more eloquently than I did just maybe 20 minutes ago. Direct sourcing 1.0 to me is a little bit more tactical, right? It's more transactional. It's more get candidates into the talent pool, get them out and get them into the organization when we need them. Direct sourcing 2.0, much more strategic, right? More focus on talent nurture, talent communication, collaboration, more focus on ensuring that those workers understand your brand and your culture. And then on the flip side of that, which of course has to be important for both the candidates and the business itself, building towards what I call talent sustainability, right? Direct sourcing should be repeatable, it should be scalable, it should be innovative, and it should be automated in such a way where you can build in and sort of take advantage of different pieces of technology, whether it's recruitment marketing, whether it's talent pool segmentation, whether it's automated communication, whether it's SMS text or it's email, whatever it is. I think one piece of direct sourcing 2.0, and I'll shut up right after this, I promise, is that when you look at talent nurture in a more traditional program, it's very blanket, right? It's hey, let's just send a text message out every Wednesday morning. But a lot of those programs, I don't think understand that not all of your candidates are going to be receptive to certain pieces of your communication with them by using just one or two different methods, right? Some candidates may respond better to an email sent late at night. Some may be better off with a text message sent on a weekend where you may get more attention. And so you build all of those sort of more forward-thinking elements together, and you have direct sourcing 2.0. And again, I don't want to be too shameless here, but if you do visit the Future of Work Exchange, take a peek at yesterday's article. We really lay it out and help companies understand the framework for that.
All right. Well, Chris, I appreciate that, and I could listen to you all day, and I just want to ask you something else, Chris, because when we last met, I had the pleasure of getting a sneak peek at some of the research that you recently undertaken on direct sourcing 2.0 for Ardent Partners and the Future Work Exchange. Would you care to share with our audience today, Chris, some of the findings that and predictions and soundings that you're hearing from the buying community around direct sourcing?
Yeah, I mean, so I guess one really big thing to talk about here is where direct sourcing is in place. And I apologize if my eyes shift to the report itself that's on my screen as well. But we found that about 28% of companies have a quote unquote mature program in place today. And in maturity, I know in direct sourcing can mean many different things. It can mean that they're directly sourcing a big chunk of their non-employee workforce. But for the purposes of the report, we looked at maturity. So 28% of companies today have that mature program in place. Another 27% have either just started or they have more of an immature program in place. But I think the biggest marker of all is that 41% of companies didn't have one at the time of the research, but they're planning to implement one within the next year to 18 months. That's huge. And to me, that speaks volumes, right? And we're not talking about something that, even though half of organizations are doing today, you have a small sliver of companies that are not, we're not interested. You have a chunk of organizations, right? Think about technology, right? If we were talking about a certain type of technology and I said, well, 41% of businesses over the next 18 months are going to implement this, we'd be talking about it a lot, right? And so it's the same here for direct sourcing. I think companies through all of the rambling that Saleem and I do all of the time on LinkedIn, right, about the topic. In addition to the fact that really and here's the other finding too that I really want to talk about here. Pre-pandemic, when we looked at workforce management priorities, things like visibility, cost, compliance, those were top of mind. The top priority for businesses going into 2020, again, before we even had an inkling of a pandemic about to happen, was direct sourcing. So I think even back then, organizations were very their interest is peaked in terms of what is this? How can we implement it in our organization? And obviously, it's exploded over the past few years, and that's a good thing, right? Because I think more and more organizations are understanding that we have, and it's a dirty phrase, right? The Great Resignation. You have this happening out there today. You need a way to combat that. You need a way to sort of, to directly engage your candidates and get them into your organization somehow. And a lot of the traditional ways of doing that just aren't going to happen today. If people are voluntarily leaving their jobs, you have to do everything you can in your arsenal of tools, whether they're technology or their strategies, to get them to want to work for your organization. And to me, direct sourcing 2.0, a lot of the talent-led stuff, a lot of the experience-led attributes of DS 2.0 are going to help organizations do just that.
Thank you, Chris. And Saleem, when I first met you and heard about your platform, I was immediately struck by that consumerization of talent, if you like, or that ability to communicate on an omni-channel basis with candidates, to engage them, market them, curate them, to give them the best possible experience when it came to finding opportunity. And I don't think that has changed too much on your platform since. But my question really, Saleem, for you is, do you share the same views as Chris around direct sourcing 2.0, and what's different from your point of view?
No, I think what Chris laid out is exactly what 2.0 is about, right? 1.0 was very transactional, and I think 2.0 is transformational, right? And if you think about it, there are three core tenets, right? Which is talent marketing, to build talent community. We don't like to use the word talent pool in our company, by the way. It's just talent pool happens because you have a talent community. Without a community, there's no pool, right? Yeah, which is actually interesting. So you have, talent marketing, talent community, and Uber personalization. And like you said, it's that consumerization of talent and talent experience is what is the core tenet, right? And in order to provide that Uber personalization, you need to have a holistic framework of data. Everything happens on data. Like Chris said, how do you Uber personalize, right? When do you send a message to who, what exactly you say, and in what mode of communications? It just doesn't happen, right? Just because you can't randomly figure it out. You need that Uber personalization data framework. And if you think about it, right, we always take what happens in a retail shopping consumer experience and try to apply it towards talent. right? Because if you think about it, what you're doing when someone visits or engages with your brand is you're trying to make them enroll into your community and then become a member of your community. And the easiest way to do that is through uber personalization, right? You don't even know, you go to Amazon and you end up buying stuff, and you at the end of the month, you go, why did I buy all that, right? It's that is the concept, taking those principles, by the way, not to have people work on 30 jobs, but you get the concept. And in order to do that, you need a holistic data view. And taking it further, right, you're also dealing with a different demographic of talent. So the old principles of being very transactional don't apply anymore, right? I mean, when we interview candidates, they ask us, what is my career roadmap in your organization? I was asked this question in an interview, and I went, oh yeah, I should have an answer for that, right? And because I'm looking at more, what is the opportunity, what the company is doing, and that kind of stuff. But it's become very personalized. They're asking, what is my personal roadmap to success in the organization? And the only way you can do that is being very talent-centric, 100% aligned with what Chris said. And one of the key things, Connor, with direct sourcing that people tend to forget is, when you say talent, we are not just looking at external talent. People who work for you are also talent, right? So the employee experience, the recruiter experience, hiring manager experience are also extremely critical. So just a few pointers if you're thinking about direct sourcing 2.0. Like we said, we can keep talking on this for a long time. I'm going to pause again.
Well, Saleem, that's why we're here, and it's super important, I feel, for our audience, for you to share your insights and experience, and likewise for Chris. And if I think about direct sourcing, when companies like my own first started practicing it or solutioning it or selling it, our tagline, and I'm sorry to say this in public these days, was cheaper, faster, better, right? In terms of, we can get you your talent cheaper, faster, better through automation, through talent community builds, and it's the best thing ever. But my suspicion now, with the so-called Great Resignation, the labor market paradox, the talent scarcity and war for talent problem, is that cost containment, as in that cheaper element of direct sourcing, is no longer a consideration. Chris, is that what your research is telling you from the buyer community?
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing. Cost is always part of the game. I mean, no matter what you do. I mean, especially if you have any influence of procurement on any of your talent-based programs, right? Whether it's a contingent workforce program or not, cost is always important. And I've been saying for, I don't know, maybe about 6 or 7 years, right? When we ask the buying community across the globe, what's your number one challenge? What's your number one focal area? I remember the first maybe 7, 8 years of my career, it was always, well, we want to drive cost savings, right? When we think about talent and work in our contingent workforce program, we want to drive cost savings. And, again, that was a period, that was a series of moments in time, right, where the contingent workforce, the extended workforce wasn't as strategic as it is today. You still see that pop up, right? I mean, if I had to list out 10 of the focal areas for organizations today, cost savings is somewhere in the middle, maybe number 5, number 6, number 7, but it's just been leapfrogged by the desire to be more agile, right? The desire for better, more highly skilled talent, right? It's those aspects that have really taken center stage. And honestly, I think that, I know we're going to be talking about the business case a little bit later, but I think direct sourcing, especially where direct sourcing is today, is a good way for organizations to sort of check all those boxes, right? I mean, Saleem, I know you'd agree with me that there's still going to be a cost element to it, right? We're still going to save money, but as long as that's not the number one focus or the sole focus of a direct sourcing program, then we're golden, right? I just think that, for years and years and years, too many businesses thought of their extended workforce as, well, it's a shorter engagement. I don't have to pay benefits. I'm not paying taxes. I'm not offering, Social Security or any of those other elements. But, look at where we are today as a labor market, right? I mean, it's very weird where you have so many people quitting their jobs, but the unemployment rate, I mean, over here in America, right, is the lowest it's been in, Saleem, help me, maybe 40 years, right? I think that was, yeah, like, maybe, 40, 45 years. So it's a very weird, very odd labor market. And, I think that direct sourcing went from being this very interesting way to drive talent to sort of being table stakes today. I think that no business should be operating today without a direct sourcing program. It doesn't mean they've got to go full tilt, integrate every single element that Saleem and I are talking about today, but maybe starting to think about the idea of building talent communities, understanding that the candidate experience is paramount, that so many individuals out there want work with purpose. They want to work with their own beliefs, their own culture in mind. And direct sourcing is a good blend of talent acquisition, building talent communities, and then also sort of helping your business adapt to what the candidates want. And so savings always going to be a part of it, but it's those other elements that I think make it so important.
Thanks, Chris. So, Saleem, what's your hot take? Is cost containment or cost savings a big consideration for the buyers that you're speaking with?
So it is shifting. Quality is becoming increasingly a key topic of discussion. That's why in the research Chris did, the whole automated evaluations and vetting becomes a key component of 2.0, right? So there's an increased focus on quality. And I think people are realizing that if you have that obsessive focus on quality, cost savings become a byproduct, right? It is going to happen. Think about a poor quality talent in your mix, the amount of disruption it causes, not just to your own process, but people around them, right? So I did a webinar on what are the key parameters of an employee turnover, right? There are a lot of things that you can align and match, but if quality is not there, quality is not there, right? You buy something of poor quality, how many times do you have to replace it? And think of all the frustrations it causes, right? So yeah, the emphasis on quality, I think people have realized it translates to a lot of benefits, cost, productivity, agility in terms of, how do you adapt to changing demands in the market and stuff like that. So yeah, we're seeing shift towards quality.
And I'll just add there too, Saleem brings up, the bad hire, right? I mean, I look at it from a perspective, if I'm a business that's really short staffed, right, and I hire the wrong person, I'm spending my very valuable time onboarding, training, and all of that. And if that doesn't work out, I just lost 1-2 weeks. And, maybe 2 or 3, I mean, a few years ago, that wouldn't have been catastrophic, right? I mean, there's so many figures out there what the cost of a bad hire actually is. But today, it's not just monetary, this is going to put us behind. And so I think I've got to completely echo what Saleem is saying there, because that's got to be a consideration as well.
Yeah, guys, I subscribe to both of your analysis, and I see a really interesting comment in the chat from a friend of the show and a friend of CXC's, from Jan Willem Vyers. Jan, can you hear us? And would you be willing to comment on your comment and just explain what you mean, number one? And number two, Jan Willem, if you're comfortable with it, from the buyer perspective, do you care as much about cost containment as before when it comes to the war for talent? Sorry for putting you on the spot, but I just...
Thanks, mate. I was expecting that. But yeah, so I basically was just writing down something in the chat as well, saying about this cost perspective. So I've worked in procurement and now I'm working in HR. So I've seen both parts. And basically direct sourcing is having the right people on the right time, with the right quality, with the right price. So basically from this 4 aspects, 25% is only cost saving. And out of the time perspective, it's the right people with the right quality. It's basically 50% based on quality. And having the right quality just in time is really more beneficial for the company than only having the short visioned cost saving. But of course, from a cost saving perspective, it's really important that you have the right price, but otherwise, so you can spend more money, or you can hire your continued worker for a longer period of time, taking out the middleman as a supplier, of course. But yeah, so basically building up a contractor value proposition that's more and more beneficial for the long period of time.
Yeah, I think you raised some really interesting points there, Jan Willem. All indications are that the vast majority of workers will be freelancers over the next 10 years, that tipping point will be reached. I know SIA have been going on about this for years, that 2019 would be 50-50, 2025 would be, plus 50%. But I think every indication tells us that freelancers is a growing market segment. But I suppose to pose a question, how many enterprises think about the messaging that they're putting out to freelancers or contingent workers or temporary workers? As we will appreciate, most of the messaging typically revolves around employees, employee experience, employee marketing, employee talent marketing. But of course, they're a declining segment, right, of organization workforce. Yeah. So I suppose my question is, Saleem, because you're a leading practitioner in the space, how can we change that? How can we shift towards that contractor value proposition and experience?
Yeah, no, that's I heard Jan Willem mention, contractor value proposition, and like you said, right, organizations are heavily focused on employee value proposition. The way I look at it, Connor, is the core tenets don't change that much, right? There is always just a nuanced aspect of it. The core tenet is, most people want to work for brands, right? Even though they go through staffing suppliers, they still want to work for brands because there's something about the brand that resonates with them. I know a lot of these sound like, hey, we're talking about kumbaya kind of stuff, well-being, happiness, and all that stuff in the end, but that's what truly matters if you're focused on mitigating turnover and things like that, right? So I think there are aspects that need to talk about opportunities for mobility within an organization, though you joined as a contractor, right? And most of the contractors that join do have an intention at some point, right, to be more permanently engaged, not necessarily in an employee arrangement, work arrangement, but they like to continue to be engaged with a specific brand. So painting that picture on how easy it is to, float around within an organization, leveraging an internal talent marketplace, for example, right? How do you leverage that to make it easy for someone who's a contractor to be able to look at other opportunities that exist? And it's relatively easy if for talent that comes in as contingent workforce into your organization through a direct sourcing engagement, right? With a staffing supplier, you may have limitations in terms of their internal mobility within a big organization where they're working. But if you're going through a direct sourcing channel, it's relatively easier to move around and work within other assignments. So I think internal mobility, convenience of moving around, right? And relying on the core tenets of your brand value would all constitute towards the contractor value proposition. But I don't think a lot of organizations are thinking about it that way right now, right? It's, the core, they go, okay, people regardless like to work for our brand. We're a great brand, right? And they try to take the same employee value proposition and try to leverage it. There's nothing wrong, right? It still works. And then they're more focused on the quality aspect and the aspect of cost that's a byproduct of quality.
Thanks, Saleem. Chris, what's your viewpoint on obviously the trend towards more freelancers as workers in enterprises, and that becoming the predominant or dominant segment within workforces? do you have a view on this contractor value proposition and any comments in relation to that?
Yeah, I mean, let me tackle the first part of that question. So, I mean, I'm certainly guilty too of saying, hey, at some point we're going to hit a threshold where half of our workforce is considered non-employee or contingent, right? And our research found maybe about 8 or 9 months ago that number's at 47%. So, you know, if there's any indicator that we're going to hit 50%, that's it, right? That we're getting close to that. So that's the first thing. The second thing is that you have so many workers today that have such a very special set of skills that they have the ability to pick and choose where they want to go, right? And so I think one byproduct of this great resignation, again, I hate the phrase, but you know, we have to use it, right? Selfishly too, it drives clicks, of course. So you know, we're going to keep using it. But I do use this phrase talent revolution, right? And the reason I use that phrase is that you have so many wonderfully skilled workers that they've faced this sort of I don't want to call it collective trauma over the past couple of years, but you know, think about, you know, people that have been sick with COVID. Think of people that have lost loved ones. Think of people that have, you know, faced mental health issues because of the pandemic. And again, you could call it collective trauma, but it forced so many skilled workers and I'm going to use the better term, people, humans, to think, you know, not that I was faced with mortality, but I was faced with the biggest health crisis in my lifetime. It really disrupted every aspect of my life. What am I doing with my life? Why am I working here? You know, why am I spending my time in an organization that doesn't align with my purpose, my beliefs, or my culture? And so, you know, the bigger bump in the number of freelancers and contractors out there are people that are thinking to themselves, I want to do what I want to do with my life. I've got skills. I want to spend time at an organization that fulfills my purpose as a worker. And I know it's really, really tough for businesses to think that way because we have always thought, you know, you can source workers the same way you can source rubber for your tires if you're manufacturing tires, right? And it's not that way anymore. We have to think of our workers as humans as well. And so and Young Lim, I'm going to steal that contractor value proposition from you. I'll give you credit, I promise. But that's a wonderful way of thinking, right? The fact that, you know, we need to do everything we can to ensure that we're a true workplace destination, right? That workers want to work with us. And I think the more important thing is that contractors and freelancers, I want to go back to talent sustainability as a topic, they're not going to work for you for 8-9 months at a time, or they may, but you know, a year down the line, you may need them again, right? And keeping them engaged through your direct sourcing program, through your talent community, is a great way to build towards that talent sustainability. So really, it's wonderful. All of these things coming together, you know, that are forming why companies should be using direct sourcing.
Yeah, I think that's fair comment. And Chris, I want to come on to the Great Resignation and how direct sourcing can maybe combat some of the problems that has created. But Saleem, my understanding from the COVID pandemic is that females were more impacted through job loss, resignation, and essentially dropped out of the workforce through the circumstances in their family life or home life, and therefore are now out of the workforce. In your view and in your experience, how can direct sourcing platforms such as yours address that diversity crisis and solve for that particular problem?
Yeah, I think you know, we have talked about it, kind of the whole borderless workforce concept, right? So I think one of the, if this is the right term to use, like the beauty of this whole pandemic is it just broken down the walls of where you can work and what you can work on, right? And it's making those alternate work arrangements accessible. And I think one of the things is creating that awareness, which then translates to marketing, right? We talked about talent marketing being a core tenet. So in order to start enlisting this segment of population back into the workforce, right, it's talent marketing and making it easy, and making it, making opportunities accessible with that whole borderless workforce concept, right, is one approach. And some of it, I think, is basically is going to happen organically, right? Certain part of the resignation was triggered by, not having access to daycare or things of that nature, where you now are becoming a teacher at home, and hopefully that gives a completely different appreciation for what teachers do in school, right? So, so that whole, that organic shift where, daycares are opening up, people are comfortable with sending their kids to daycare, sending them to school, that in itself will organically shift some of this. But with this new world, making talent marketing and making it clearly visible and accessible will be another driver for that shift. So one thing, I was thinking about this contractor value proposition. It's a unique term I haven't heard before. I worry if the purpose of a talent community, talent pool for direct sourcing is meant to be for all work arrangements. Do you really want to, again, create that separation of, hey, employee value proposition, contractor value proposition? I'm just thinking out loud because I just heard it for the first time today. So yeah, that'll be a very interesting topic, maybe the next webinar, Connor.
Yeah.
Saleem, don't worry, I've already submitted the paperwork to the U.S. Patent Office. So we're
yeah, we have to thank Jan Willem for that.
We do. We do.
That turn of phrase. But just looking at the Great Resignation, most of the data that I've seen thus far indicates that the Great Resignation is largely a USA driven phenomenon. And there's a paper that we've linked in the chat, folks, from Anita Lettink on the Great Resignation. But essentially her hypothesis is that the USA disproportionately impacted by the Great Resignation, but other mature labor markets such as Germany, Belgium, Netherlands, and UK, the actual participation in the labor rate was stable during that period. In fact, it was on trend with previous years pre-pandemic, which I found really interesting. And I like that paper because I like anyone that does anything that's counterintuitive or breaks the popular narrative. But I think it's not a dispute around the USA. I think the USA has experienced a severe amount of resignation. Chris, before we began today's show, you mentioned a really telling statistic from the Bureau of Labor Statistics in the USA in terms of resignations over the last month or quarter.
Yeah, and so yeah, we were talking about this in the green room before we started the webinar today. Yeah, so the Bureau of Labor Statistics in the United States has been tracking this metric for about 30 years or so, and it's voluntary resignations by month. And so when May 2021 hit, it was the biggest month on record. And I don't remember what the figure was, but I think it was close to 3.5 million. And if anyone else on the line knows that statistic, feel free to pop it in the chat. But what we saw over here in the States was that number was steady every single month. So you had 3.5 million, 4 million, those numbers kept going up and up and up. In November of last year was the biggest month on record with 4.5 million resignations. And I remember too, just thinking to myself, okay, now we're entering a different phase of the pandemic where Delta is subsiding. And of course, bless Omicron for messing things up for all of us. That number was lower in December, but I mean, not much of a difference, 4.5 million to 4.4 million, right? So we're going to see what January brings, and I think we should have those figures soon. But here's the thing about the Great Resignation. And I promise I'll get off my soapbox after this about this topic. It's real, right? It is real. It's happening. I mean, when you have over the course of 9 and 10 months, something like 40 or 50 million people leave their jobs, of course it's a real thing. The problem over here in the States is that a lot of organizations think it's just related to the low income, blue collar roles, and that's just not the case, right? Yeah, I mean, there's so many different reasons why. When you look at some of those blue collar, lower wage type of roles, not so great safety conditions, right? Think about all like the horrible videos we see on Facebook or Instagram of people treating people in restaurants like crap, right? Because they don't want to wear a mask, and they don't want to show their vaccination card, right? That stuff is happening across that segment of the workforce. But again, you have so many other, in the middle, right? You want to call them whatever type collar workers, and you have white collar workers leaving their jobs as well. So it's not a matter of if it's real or not. It's definitely real. It's just the way the businesses are looking at it, because I think every business that hasn't experienced that level of resignation at their business, it's going to happen to them eventually, right? They've just maybe dodged it so far. But again, I do think, to my two points on the talent, the Great Resignation, we should be thinking about it as a talent revolution, right?
Yes.
Empowerment and power coming back to the worker, right? They want flexibility. I mean, think of, I have to say, Saleem, I was thinking about this when you were talking about workers becoming teachers. The first day of school, the fall of 2020, my daughter, who was going into second grade, she literally crawled from one end of our living room to the kitchen table where I had the laptop all set, because she just didn't want to do it. And I look back now and it was funny, but it wasn't funny that day, and nor was it funny the 2-3 months that I had to do that every morning with her. So you have a lot of those things happening and causing people to leave their jobs and want more flexibility. And there's a lot of confusion around it. I mean, all of the big media outlets, they just focus on people are leaving their jobs, but there's dozens of reasons why. We shouldn't ignore those.
Yeah, I agree with you, Chris, but I think I like that phrase, talent revolution, and I like the fact that, at least temporarily, power has reverted to employees and not employer. That asymmetric relationship has occurred, which I think is for and to the good. I suppose my question is, how can direct sourcing programs help get those folks that have either been displaced voluntarily from the workforce or involuntarily from the workforce back into work and contributing in organizations? What's your take on that, Chris and Saleem? Can direct sourcing help, at least potentially or partially, solve for this particular problem?
Yeah, I mean, I think direct sourcing is a wonderful way to combat what we're experiencing here with this Great Resignation, the big quit, great reassessment, whatever you want to call it, right? It's a good way of getting people, and Saleem is, and I have to give credit to Saleem, because that literally is the way we should be thinking of things. Not talent pools, but talent communities, right? That's the way we should be thinking about it. What better way to get workers engaged with you than to put them in a talent community, right? And give them a peek into your culture, into your organization, not just from a work perspective, but who we are as a business, and see if the skill sets line up or they match, right? I mean, direct sourcing is a great way of doing that. I mean, these people aren't directly applying to a role, they're just applying to be part of your talent community. And I can't think of a better way for someone who's been displaced, someone who who's involuntarily been displaced, someone who voluntarily has left their job, they're looking for new roles, to be parts of different, be a part of different talent communities, because it's going to expose them to so many more choices, and inevitably one or two of those are going to spark some level of interest. And again, I think the great thing about direct sourcing, and especially the talent community part of it, is that it really benefits both sides, right? The workers don't have to take the job. You have so many other individuals in your talent community that someone passes on it, you can offer that to someone else. So and too, so I know Saleem will talk about this, but the wonderful thing about direct sourcing automation today is that whatever system of record you're using, those talent communities are going to be integrated. So very easy when you pop open a new requisition to know that, okay, in addition to my staffing suppliers, my professional services, I can link my talent communities and my talent pools into my system of record, and I've got access to them.
Yeah, Chris, I think it really is a really brilliant set of points there. And Saleem, I appreciate there's some of our audience are from the buying community today, but they might not have a direct sourcing program in place at the moment. And to Chris's research, maybe they're thinking about it or probably are thinking about it. What practical steps and advice can you offer, Saleem, to the buyers or on the call that are considering a direct sourcing platform? How do you go and build that talent community? What are the practical steps that you'd recommend?
Yeah, so Connor, I'll take the question in just a minute. I want to add to the previous question, right? So direct sourcing inherently is about contingent workforce, right? And if you think about, the Great Resignation, predominantly it's driven by a certain segment of the workforce, right? And that segment of the workforce in the past predominantly had opportunities within a 50-mile radius of where they did things, right? So if you now look at direct sourcing being predominantly contingent, and then layer on top of it, boundaryless workforce, right? So this workforce that's displaced has started realizing that, hey, I can take a 3-month, 6-month training course and the opportunities are endless, and direct sourcing being a channel of contingent workforce could make it easy for this population to get into the workforce, right? And along those same lines, once that's happened, the rest of the population that's looking at the changes that have happened within the community of their friends, right? They're also lining up behind, okay, why not I do the same thing, right? And it's that aspect of direct sourcing being predominantly contingent, workforce trying to start thinking about work arrangements differently, that creates that funnel. And also organizations now are more and more looking at skill-based hiring, not credential-based hiring, right? I mean, there's a big shift towards that. So when you look at these different factors, that's how it would help bring their workforce back into the mix. So now going back to the question, which actually is, thank you for setting it up so I can get to sell what we do. So, when you look at, I think organizations that are trying to do it now, I think they're close to 50%. They're in a really great place, right? They can see what the other 28% mature programs are, what the 28% trying to mature are. There's a lot of good learnings that's come out, and sessions like this and research that Chris and there are other companies that are putting out, right? You can leverage all that stuff to make the right decision in terms of how you go about implementing it. One of the key things, there are certain best practices that we have seen, right? Leveraging the brand. I know a lot of organizations are very protective and concerned, but laying out clear governance model around how brands get used and getting buy-in from marketing and relevant stakeholders, right? That is something that's an essential step towards implementing a direct sourcing program. And there's also internal marketing that you need to do to make sure your hiring managers and everyone is aware that, hey, this is a channel that they need to actually focus on, because that's an avenue that you as a brand has created to procure quality talent and the optimal costs, right? So once you do that, then the next step is to clearly identify what role types and job types need to be employed. I mean, need to be allocated to your direct sourcing channel, right? So these are all the things that organizations have proven out, and taking those best practices. I mean, there are about 10 or 11 different best practices that come into play. If people hit me up on LinkedIn or something, I'll share that stuff. So once you do that, from a technology standpoint, the reason direct sourcing 2.0 is kind of becoming a topic of conversation a lot is now you have technology platforms that can deliver on that true consumer experience, right? Like 1.0 was very transactional. You could achieve it through a collection of point solutions to to get to where you needed to get to, where it was purely cost focused. But now if you're trying to look at building a community, nurturing a community, and getting to that transformational place of sourcing contingent workforce, then make sure that technology solutions are rooted in leveraging power of data to truly deliver that consumer-centric experience, right? And one thing that also organizations need to start thinking about is 2.0 is not the end, right? It's kind of a, hey, let's get there, because you're just one step away from there to achieving the whole total talent acquisition, total talent relationship concepts, right? We have done things where, how do you use an internal talent marketplace and internal your existing perm employees to actually funnel a healthy source of sustainable talent into your direct sourcing channel, right? Again, make it easy, make it quick. I think it's these days when our QA people are testing the product, if it's a 4-second delay, they say, oh, it's too much. So you're dealing with this type of a mindset, which means if you're going to leverage your internal full-time employees to create a sustainable source for your contingent workforce, then make it easy for them to, through referrals or other avenues, bring you talent. We talk about qualities, right? Your internal employees are not going to refer somebody that's going to show up and make them look bad, right? So you see how all of these things connect, and it's fascinating. So, clearly define a roadmap. Don't look at it as, hey, I'm going to get there and be done. Be thinking a step ahead, because you are in a great place right now, right? You can learn from all the mistakes others have made. You can leverage technologies that have come to a point where they can make it happen. So that's kind of my 2 cents or my advice.
Thank you, Saleem. And Chris, if we can look for a few moments at building a business case for direct sourcing 2.0, who are the typical stakeholders that an enterprise would need to involve in that endeavor, or before they begin that endeavor?
Yeah, I mean, I would blend a team of talent acquisition, HR, and procurement, as well as looping in marketing, right? I mean, I think that the way to sort of quote unquote sell direct sourcing, implementing a direct sourcing program, especially today, is looking at it in a way where we need to communicate to all of our stakeholders that we're struggling to find talent, right? We're struggling to offer candidates really what they want. We're not doing a good enough job explaining the power of our brand or our business culture, and I think that that's why you don't just need procurement, HR, talent acquisition, but marketing should be involved as well, because they know the brand, they often know the culture as well. And I think another really big selling point in building the business case is, how can we combat all of the problems we're having with staffing right now? I mean, the majority of businesses that I talk to on the practitioner side, they're having staffing shortages, right? Whether it's on the shop floor, whether it's in IT, whether it's a healthcare facility where, they're struggling to get, nurses to look after patients. I mean, every organization is facing some type of staffing shortage or some problem with talent. And if this is going to be a gateway of helping alleviate some of those problems, not right away, but after we've actually taken the time to build it, then, I mean, I don't think that there's any stakeholder or business leader that can really argue with that.
Fair comment. Saleem, anyone else you'd involve in building the business case, and any tips or pointers for our audience?
Oh, well, I'll interrupt here. Involve Saleem and I will help. Right? Right?
Love it.
So, there are a couple aspects that we are starting to see, which was not a topic that we used to often encounter, which is creating that homogeneous, unified experience, right? Once you're hired and placed, what happens during the onboarding process? What happens during the offboarding process and the redeployment aspects, right? So you definitely want to involve some of your process-related people. If you don't really do it right, you're going to end up with a lot of hidden costs that are going to pop up, right? And the one team, our R&D team always says, we are the ignored ones, but we are the key ones, right? That make everything happen, because whatever I say, they have to go make sure it happens, right? The one of the key stakeholders that get ignored is your systems people. Because if you're trying to bring in a whole set of point solutions, the integration aspects, the vendor management aspect of it, and making sure you're aligning roadmap disparities, and there's a whole slew of nightmares that would happen, which usually people tend to forget. And the reason I'm talking about this is Chris covered a lot of the other elements. So from a business case standpoint, it becomes important to look at the impact of the platform on your ecosystem, right? And again, this could be, by the way, the business case also varies on on the model you use to operationalize it, right? If you're going to bring it all in-house, then the business case drivers tend to be different, as opposed to if you're trying to do it as an initiative under an MSP, then your business case purely becomes, what's my markup, right? And what's the impact on my ecosystem, right? Because brands are becoming increasingly aware of the impact of contingent workforce within the ecosystem, because work is now being looked at more as project-based, even within an organization. So it's a mix of perm versus end contingent. So there is a very where there's a very key aspect of cost from an organization standpoint, if they've operationalized it purely from the standpoint of, hey, MSP, find me service partner and a tech platform. But if you bring it all in-house, then you can't ignore the cost of IT. So just an area that usually gets ignored, needs to be paid attention to from building the business case.
Thank you, Saleem. I think just to add what you gents have said, the other probably important stakeholders is legal. I think when we were launching our direct sourcing 1.0 programs coming back to maybe 4 years ago, the biggest objector to what we wanted to do was around the brand. So oftentimes marketing and procurement and talent acquisition were full square behind the use of the brand, right? When we came to talking to our friends in legal, they were like, what? They want to use our brand? What the hell do they want to use our brand? They're bloody an external vendor. And that was obviously a difficult conversation. But my guess is that there's been a shift in that conversation, particularly due to some of the challenges that we've seen around talent scarcity and the war for talent and the great resignation and whatnot. So guys, I really appreciate you joining the show today. I think our audience will have learned a huge amount, not just around direct sourcing 2.0, but also how to operationalize a direct sourcing platform, how to potentially build a business case, and how to involve some of the key stakeholders, and whom are those key stakeholders. So I really enjoyed it. Thanks to all our audience that joined today. I think we got 1 minute left. And any questions before we close down the show? No questions. I think we've done a very thorough job. Thank you very much, everyone that's joined. And thank you in particular to Saleem Khaja and Chris Dwyer of Ardent Partners. That's Saleem Khaja of WorkLlama and Chris Dwyer of Ardent Partners. Thank you, gents. All the best, everyone. Have a great day ahead. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Connor.
everyone. Take care.
Bye.
Take care.